Welcome to a lesson about formulas and errors. We're going to start off by looking at a balance. Of course, we know that in an equation, both sides must equal each other. So if one side of the equation is 3, then they both have to be 3. One is 78. Well, 78 equals 78. If you look behind the scenes of this spreadsheet, you'll see in the formula bar up here that I've just set the formula to equals D5. So cell D5, whatever's in this box, will also be in that one. And what if we look at something like equatio? Let's insert some math, like 4x squared plus 3. 4x squared plus 3 equals 4x squared plus 3. Remember that each one of these cells acts like its own calculator. When you start off with equals, let's say 412 minus 395, it puts out an answer for you, but you can still see the question, what you typed, in the formula box. But now I want you to think about how we can start to use these kinds of formulas to turn a spreadsheet into a calculator to maybe solve for the unknown. So here's an example with an unknown. Let's call it x, or question mark. We know both sides have to equal, and so if one side equals 8, we want 8 to be in this box here. But we're going to put a formula, C5 plus D5, adding these two cells together. 12 plus x. Uh-oh, that gives us an error. We're going to have to put something else in x to make it true. What about 4? 4 plus 12 does not equal 8, like we want it to be. Neither does 0. What about negative 4? Aha! So now we know our answer, x equals negative 4. Okay, so you're not always going to have a great spreadsheet like this, so let's go to a more typical one. We're going to talk about some formulas. Formulas always start off with the equal sign. So in cell F2, I'm going to type equals E2, is this cell right here, plus 7. Now in G2, let's hit equals E2 minus 1. In H2, equals E2, and in I2, we can do equals E2 divided by 2. Now what's so great about all of this is whatever number you put in E2, all of those formulas will be updated automatically. If we make it 10, simply go back to the cell and type a new number. The calculations happen automatically. That's the power of spreadsheets. Now, the power really comes when you add or subtract or multiply or divide cells with each other. For this example, we're going to do some calculations to make some purple. So let's say we wanted to take half of the red, half of the blue to make purple. Let's try some different formulas. What about equals half the red, so E3 divided by 2, that's the slash, plus F3 divided by 2. You get 140. What's another way you could do that? Maybe instead of dividing by 2, multiply by 0.5. We get the same answer. Can you think of any other ways to get half the red and half the blue? Why not take the average? Let's do equals E3 plus F3 divided by 2. Wait a second, that's not 140. Why not? What do you notice about this formula? Believe it or not, spreadsheet programs use BEDMAS. Brackets, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, subtraction. So here we're adding 171 plus F3 divided by 2. but we want E3 plus F3 first, and then divide by 2. But what if we thought the red was too strong? And so we wanted to maybe only take 40% red and 60% blue. So instead of 0.5, E3 could be multiplied by, so times is the star, 0.4, 40%, and F3 times 0.6, or 60%. Aha, a different number. But what if we wanted to get that number as close to, let's say, 125 as possible? Well, we'd have to keep going back in and changing the percentages. So why not just put some percentages down here? Here we've got 40 and 60. So instead of multiplying it by 0.4, you could multiply it by E5. Now, E5 is not 0.4, so we'd have to divide that by 100. Get the same thing. Do the same thing to 60%, divide by 100. Now we can start changing the percents. And it gets updated automatically. So now that you've seen the power of using formulas in a spreadsheet, let's go to some of the errors that you might run into. Here we have a divide by 0 error. So our example is B3 divided by D3, but uh-oh, cell D3 has a 0 in it, and what happens? Divide by 0 error. The next type of error would be a value error. Let's say you tried multiplying 20 by Toronto. Spreadsheets won't let you use a formula with something that's not a number. Another type of error is a reference error. Let's say instead of B3, we multiplied B3 by F3, but we write that in the cell F3. Well, you're referencing the same cell that you're writing the formula, and that causes a circle. That just doesn't work. Another type of error is just error, and you can get that by doing things like incorrectly writing the operations. Like, let's say we added and divided at the same time. Well, you can't do that. In math, you might get a number error if something like square root of a negative shows up. Well, that number doesn't exist. And finally, a name error is when you mistype, maybe instead of B3, we wanted to subtract D3, but we wrote DD, which is of course wrong, and it gives you an error. So using this knowledge about formulas and how to avoid errors, you should be able to go to the input-output machine and complete the tasks in there, no problem.